perfect timing. Black Friday, not Black Friday, folks, but Friday the 13th. So, there's going to be some unluck in the house. Let's hope it's just regarding this particular black screen that is here and doesn't bode ill for Tachyon Blue's crowdfunding campaign for his GamerGate book. So, take it away, Tacky.
All right. Well, hey, Vincent, thanks for having me. I'm Tachyon Blue. I'm a YouTuber and live streamer. I'm on YouTube, Kick, and Twitch. But right now, I'm here to talk to you about my project. I've interviewed over 70 people involved with GamerGate on both sides and in a variety of capacities for a multi-volume series of books called The People of GamerGate. The first volume of which is already done. I launched a Kickstarter campaign 5 days ago, and we've already hit over $3,000 of our $6,000 goal. So thank you to everybody who's donated so far. And I'd love to make the sales pitch to you today for why you should back this project, why it's important, why this is a quality work, and why the investigation is worth supporting.
Yeah, like why crowdfunded? What sort of bum are you that you need to crowdfund this particular thing? Is there any logic to it? I'm going to do a little devil's advocate.
Yeah, so for me personally, I'm not going to get like too in the weeds with my personal finances, but let's just say that I'm like lower middle class. I don't have a huge amount of money. There are certain expenses associated with this work, especially hiring artists to do the covers. That is important, and I think that I want to raise the funds for it, but the idea of raising that amount of money to hire that many people to do artwork and also to get other equipment and supplies, one thing I'm looking for is a dual monitor setup. So streaming with a dual monitor setup, I believe will be a lot more efficient and be a lot better than trying to stream with a single setup. So I'm getting a new desk and a new dual monitor setup to make streaming better, and hiring artists and a few other expenses too. I bought GamerGateBook.com, the domain. I plan on buying another domain as well to promote the project.
Also, another avenue to sort of put yourself out there. People go through GoFundMe's to pretty much see. Was that a thought process? Almost like some people go through GoFundMe's to see what's out there. And it's almost serves as marketing nowadays. It can serve as a marketing tool, in my opinion.
So that's my hope as well. That the Kickstarter and GoFundMe are a little bit different. GoFundMe, the person just gets the money, and it's like a charity basically. Whereas Kickstarter, you actually get the physical product. You're going to get an actual product, either digital or physical, depending on what tier you get. You'll get an actual product, a bang for your buck. So you're not just giving charity money to me. You're actually getting a physical product at the end of it, and the first volume's already done. Those will be shipping pretty quickly after the Kickstarter ends.
Very libertarian of you. Very libertarian. Works out sometimes, other times, who really knows at the end of the day? It's really not much about that. At least you're going through a certain site and not trying to create your own sort of weird setup. Yeah, I'll probably be getting into. I might be getting into something like that later, but let's get into the actual hard questions. I meant why Kickstarter, basic or crowdfunding was the question for the book.
Yeah, so why crowdfunding?
That settle.
Yeah, raising the money. Yeah, I needed to raise the money for it. I didn't think it was a huge amount.
Other expenses. I meant the two monitor thing. I don't know how that really plays into how it connects to the book. It helps you.
Oh, because I'm doing my interviews both for this project and for future projects over live stream. And so with the dual monitor setup, the idea, at least I hope, is that I can set up one screen so that it tracks the video of the participants in the call, whereas the other screen will be used for either looking up research or taking notes or playing a game or something like that while I'm on the call. Because right now, you use StreamYards, but on Discord, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you're in a call and you switch menus, switch windows, it will automatically make the screen go black if they have a video going.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've seen the sort of technical difficulties of some of your streams.
Yeah. So to avoid that.
It's sort of a, let me not get into it. It's good enough. It's good enough. I could press you on that, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. You're shooting for how much again? Just to clarify.
$6,000. So I did a analysis, and I need a little bit over 4,000 for the budget I've created. But Kickstarter recommends that I go for a little bit more than that, about 6,000, to cover taxes and fees, because they have a nearly 10% in fees. It varies because of the processing fee. They have a Kickstarter fee of 5% and a processing fee, which they estimate at 5%, but could potentially be more or less depending on the processor that they use, the card that they use. But that's like kind of boring stuff.
Okay. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Why are you trying to publish this book?
Yeah, so I think it's important that the world have a historical record of GamerGate that is accurate and factually correct. I think that right now, if you look at like the Wikipedia version of events, you're not going to be getting that. And so I wanted to make sure. Well, first off, I wanted to make sure that the people involved with GamerGate, which I was involved with, I wanted to make sure that they had their stories heard. I felt like they never really got a fair shake in the media, and the Wikipedia version of events has been propagated uncritically by many people. So I wanted to make sure that the people involved with GamerGate had their say. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I try and explore this topic neutrally, from a neutral perspective, or at least as neutrally as I can, being someone who was involved. I'm going to interview people on both sides. I've interviewed several anti-gamer.
Like of you, good people on both sides. Had to throw that in. Continue.
Yeah. Well, I've interviewed over 70 people altogether, including a lot of anti-GamerGate people. But most of the people I've interviewed are pro-GamerGate. The anti-GamerGate people, a lot of them decided that they don't want to talk with me. They don't want to tell their story in this book. And I think rather tellingly, several of the people who've written articles that were very critical of GamerGate agreed to be interviewed, but then backed out, like Ian Miles Chung and Asia Romano of Vox and Lauren O'Neill of the CBC. So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll probably get into that a little bit when things heats up. So the bias thing there, you're trying to remove bias. What good does that do anyone? That is going to be a good question for a lot of people. But who are the intended audience for this book?
That's a good question, and one I didn't really think about until, I guess, now, or relatively recently. I guess the intended audience is anyone who's interested in learning about GamerGate. So that could be historians, it could be journalists, it could be people who were involved with the movement and want to have something that that reflects their history and involvement with it. It could be people who are working on a project for school. It could be have educational value, or it could just be someone who just, you know what, they want to find out what happened during GamerGate. They don't really know that much about the topic, and they want to learn more. So anyone who's interested in learning about GamerGate, I would say that this work is intended for them. As for what they're going to learn, they're going to be learning what GamerGate was through the course of a journey. So the way that the books are structured is the first volume contain the books contain a number of interviews in mostly chronological order from which I conducted them. So it's sort of like a journey with me through the volumes, through the chronology. But some of the specific interviews in the books are book exclusive interviews, and those are not in chronological order. So the reader will be going through this journey of uncovering the mystery of what was Gamergate through the eyes of the people involved. There's going to be about 11 to 13 volumes, I estimate, in total, plus a data volume. And so they're going to be getting the experience person to person of what Gamergate was like. And then at the very end, with the data volume, they're going to get a breakdown of what I've uncovered in terms of the data, in terms of both from the interviews themselves and also from the optional survey that I sent to people. I sent 3 optional surveys out: one pro Gamergate, one anti, one neutral, to the people I've interviewed. So the data volume will contain data from that, and also my good faith interpretation of how they've asked the various questions that I've asked them in the interviews. And at the end of each volume will contain a Tachyon's take, which will contain my findings and thoughts on a specific topic relating to the Gamergate conversation.
Okay, of course, the next question is why should anyone believe you? You're part of Gamergate. There's some people who are going to have a certain bias against you being a liberal. They'll find many, many different biases to sort of discount you. I mean, I admire the fact you're trying to go into this neutrally, but other people, they will think you have an agenda.
Yeah, I
So
mean, we're all human beings. We all have like certain values, I guess, that we operate based on. I'm no different. I try to keep my values, I try to keep my personal viewpoints. I wouldn't say out of the work because that's not really true, but I try to hear out like a variety of perspectives. I've interviewed tons of people who disagree with me, including pro GamerGate people who disagree with me on a lot of stuff, anti GamerGate people who disagree with me on a lot of stuff. Um, if I'm making a specific claim and you're skeptical of the claim, I think that that's understandable. But ask me for a source if I haven't provided one already, and if it's something that I can back up, I will do so. If it's not something I can back up, then maybe I'm wrong about something, and I want to try and reconsider that. I try to approach things with honesty. I've tried to live my life being honest for the past couple of years, completely honest about everything, basically, and so I don't know. It's just really important value to me. I know for a lot of people, honesty is not really something that you can. There's no way I can convince you by telling you, I guess, that I'm honest to have you believe me. I just have to base it on my actions, I
yeah,
guess.
it's a little hard, but yeah,
Yeah.
this does seem to be. It's a question that I think should be asked. Have you had anyone try to sort of discredit you over the years, like saying, "Yeah, that guy's biased," blah blah blah, have some excuse for just to write you off as some sort of kook or idiot for doing this?
I mean, like, there's always people like that on social media or in comment sections on videos and stuff. But I don't ever really make much of it. In terms of like people trying to discredit me, outside of just like leaving a comment or a tweet or two. I guess Ninetales, when I interviewed her, I think she went into that interview with the intention of trying to discredit me. I don't think she did a very good job of that. Uh, in terms of like people doing takedown videos or anything like that, no, not really. Actually, people haven't taken that tack with me yet. I have had some people like try to harass me to some extent, like spamming the Discord server, and I can provide you with evidence of that if you'd like. Um, brigading the Discord server, people sharing like Leia Alexander shared my email address, which was already public information, though was not widely known. So I don't really consider it doxing, but she shared my email address with her 100,000 plus followers on Twitter.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, never good. I mean, it could have been an attempt. It could have just been a mistake. Who the hell knows with those particular things? It's all about the results at the end of the day. So, all the boring questions I think are out of the way. The reason I asked the last question is I sort of noticed a thing with a dev. Well, he sort of I find it quite a few different things interesting. Everyone seems to have their own telling of Gamergate. If you go through video, if you look up Gamergate video wise, which one would you say is the most in line with what you learn from your research?
Gosh, it's difficult to say. There's some good videos out there. I think that the Airplay documentary, is probably a pretty good resource. I think also too, if you're looking for something very short, I think PSA Sitch's video, about the cafeteria, GamerGate Explained, easy cartoon. I think that's a pretty good, very basic entry level perspective on it. If you want like an anti GamerGate take, I guess like
Yeah.
Savvy Liser's video, like Savvy writes books, probably has like one of the more nuanced of the anti GamerGate videos.
Okay. Yeah, I saw Lance the Surfs video. I went through the rabbit hole of seeing different perspectives on it when I started to dive into doing research on Gamergate.
I've
I
not seen the Surfs, but I generally don't hold them in very high regard. How
no,
was their video?
I literally got a comment a few days, like a week or two ago, when I did it. Like when they put it out, I'm like, okay, can someone in the comments just tell me when he actually talks about Gamergate instead of all this other bullshit? And someone few weeks ago just been like, oh yeah, here. He talks about it a little here and here. I hate that sort of approach in particular style within content creation. They'll try to conflate a whole bunch of other stuff with what they are putting, and the audience tends not are coming to you for information. And again, this is why I respect your project and a lot of people who take the more neutral approach. It's boring most of the time. It's hard to find a way to sort of jazz it up and make it worthwhile. That's probably going to be your biggest problem in marketing this.
Yeah, I think so.
People want to use GamerGate as a sort of hammer. We've been the sort of narrative we've been called racist, homophobe, and all this crap over the years. And you'll have the lefties. It's just a harassment campaign. And it still is a harassment campaign. And it got Donald Trump elected somehow. And everything bad, everything is GamerGate. I like upper echelon sort of take. I mean, his sort of style sometimes comes off as weenie, but I think he's the closest to neutral that I've seen to really cover the sort of anti-SJW stuff and the anti-woke stuff in a rather neutral as possible way, but trying to be way too nice also. But that's my personal preference.
Yeah, I wonder if the best way for someone to learn about GamerGate, I have not personally tried this approach. I would not endorse this approach, but I'm just curious. I wonder if it'd be like just watching a random live stream, like one of the open houses we did back during GamerGate with like 20 people on a call. I wonder if like that would be like the best way to just like understand.
I've done that for research. Some of them can be interesting. Okay, you had I want to say Limp Bizkit, but no, Total Biscuit. I'm not going to sing. I thought about singing about a Limp Bizkit lyric, but I have like a voice like a dead fish, so let's not do that. But at the end of the day, but yeah, let's see. Any notable examples from GamerGate that you think is really important? I mean, you brought up the real quick video that PS Stitch did, which is quick. Any major events that you would recommend anyone to sort of go over in detail?
Yeah, I think if you're going to be looking into GamerGate, there's so many different starting points that you could go with. I don't know what would be best necessarily. I mean, other than my own work, of course, right? But
no, of course.
But I guess like looking at like SPJ AirPlay, like if you want to understand GamerGate, I guess like watching the original AirPlay conference, part 1 and then part 2 after that, I think might give you some inclination. Now the conference was cut short due to the bomb threats. Like that's not like going to be the full experience. That's not going to tell you everything about GamerGate, but that could be a good starting point. And then I think also some other areas you want to look at too are like some of the major events that have occurred. Like you want to look at like the Crash Override Network Skype leak, for instance, which I still need to do like a deeper dive into, I guess, at some point for the harassment section of the Tachyon stick on harassment. But yeah, I guess like the Crash Override Network, which was this chat group created by Zoe Quinn and funded by Anita Sarkeesian, that was used by many of the prominent anti-GamerGate people. And one of the people in this group later leaked to the chat logs. 3 or 4 members of the group have confirmed the chat logs are real, and it portrays them engaging in harassment and engaging in a lot of like really untoward conduct. Like one instance, they try to get Foxygon, this person who supported GamerGate, kicked out of the military because they disagreed with him. And they tried doxing people by linking people's real names and their Facebook profiles to their online handles. But you also look at like Zack Attack, this group that was another anti-GamerGate group that was involved, that was engaged in doxing. But I would also look at I'd look at a lot of the events that occurred at the very beginning as well. I'd look at the Gamers Are Dead articles. I think that those catalyzed GamerGate into a movement, more or less. You know, I think everything up until that point probably could have been walked back down from. But
Not
when
Your
they released
Shield.
Yeah, Not Your Shield is an important event. Of course, Torrential Downpour, arguably. Though that's more on like the artistic freedom side of things, and whether or not that's even part of GamerGate is somewhat like debatable, I guess you could say. Game Journal Pros, you want to look at that. This mailing group of games journalists who are working together, including to promote narratives and to encourage censorship.
Well, it's a little bit when those things get exposed, it looks bad for those particular people. Okay. Do you ever worried as a streamer within the political space? I brought up the fact you had a stream with Wick, and you're going to have a stream with Connor for, I don't know if he still goes by his old streamer name, Counterpoints anymore. It's quite interesting. Both are connected to Progressive Victory, Brianna Wu's sort of thing. I think you tried to get in contact with Brianna Wu, but did you ever talk to her ever?
I have talked with her off the record, and I talked with her unrelated about the Sweet Baby Inc. controversy, but I've never talked with her for the book. No. Okay. As for why I've done interviews with people connected with Progressive Victory, that's just more, I guess, like coincidence.
I think they just want to get as much exposure. Okay, I'm not trying to say you're a secret cabal member of Progressive Victory.
No, I am though.
I know how they work. They're also part of the old sort of panel scene, so it's quite interesting. And has anyone used like the people you interact with on panels as sort of a got you on you? Like, how dare you talk to that guy or that girl or that trans person and call them by their real name? Ever had that sort of?
I mean, like some experiences with like people like misgendering somebody in chat. Like stuff like that happens as a streamer. As for like people be like, oh, don't talk to that person. Not really. I mean, I guess like probably the closest something like that's happened is you, or not you personally, but someone on your stream, on a previous stream, was telling me about how they were leaving my Discord because Food Shops is part of it, as a member.
Yes, that person there. They have very strong takes about Food Shops, weird past. Guilt by association. You're gonna get that on both sides. That person's a gay, more conservative leaning person. Let's not bring them up too much. They're fine. I'm fine with associating with people I disagree with. In fact, I like argue with people who disagree with me for the most part. But yeah, at the end of the day, you got into a certain matter. So your book's construction is pretty much telling a story. You're having a subjective experience, a narrative, and then you bring in the more objective facts overlaid on top of those personal experiences of the people you interview for your book, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I fact check along the way too, or I try to.
Okay. Yep. Fact checking along the way is probably the smart thing to do. Sort of like Joe Rogan does in some of these particular things. So, big question that I even warned you about. You were a former mod at Kotaku in Action. You've been doxxed.
Social Justice in Action, actually, but.
Oh, Social Justice in Action. Okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Sorry. Details sometimes a little. Did you ask your interviewees where they got their information from in GamerGate?
So no, I actually don't ask people that question. Generally speaking, I did ask it one time, I guess, because I asked it to Paul Johnson and Stephen Mallory, the organizers of the Alt F4 conference. I did, however, ask people in the optional survey that I sent out what websites people went to, social media sites, both during GamerGate and today. And then I also asked people as well what they think, what their opinion is, positive or negative sentiment to rate a wide variety of different news outlets, both gaming news sites and mainstream news sites.
Okay. Because believe it or not, I have a bachelor's in digital communications. That's sort of what got me into doing various things online. Well, before I sort of was getting into it, I did a lot of shit posting sort of videos. So that's what interests me, how the sort of cosmic telephone of the internet, like where you're getting your news from, who bothers fact checking, who bothers to sort of the telephone effect. Like Dev is a good example of where a lot of people got their understanding initially from the old Gamergate. Like if you go back into the 9 months ago when Sweet Baby Ink stuff was fresh and new, you had Dev go on to side scrollers to explain Gamergate. And supposedly in that interview, I rewatched it. Supposedly, people had criticisms of him, basically how he explained it. I don't know why they relied on him to give the lowdown. I think that's just because he's the friend. Okay, they don't. What are your thoughts on Dev's particulars from what you know? And have you interviewed him?
So I've not interviewed Dev. I actually reached out to him. Him and I've talked before about other topics, and he wanted to do an interview. He said he wanted to do it, but then I just stopped hearing from him. He just kind of went quiet, and so I don't know. So I would assume he's not doing it anymore. He's not interested. I've followed up with him a couple times. Hey, look, we still doing this, and he didn't get back to me. So I don't know what's going on with that. As for like, what do I think of him? I mean, as far as I'm aware, last time we talked, we're on good terms. I think he comes at it from like a very specific angle. I think he was more involved in like the social justice warrior culture wars aspect of it. But he also too he did the indefensible videos, which talked about alleged corruption in the indie scene. So I guess for him, I guess maybe it really was a more again, I can't speak to his definition, so I don't know how he would personally define it. If he just views Gamergate as being only about ethics, or if he's like an ethics plus social justice person, or what.
I do believe he focuses more on the social justice, but he likes to remind people it was about ethics. He has this weird sort of stance. I mean, I've seen him do several different Gamergate interviews overall. So that is really how that went down. The sort of transmission of that. So, and like Stuttering Craig didn't really know about that. Neither did Brutus, from what my understanding and memory. I went over it. So that is that sort of a line down there.
Oh, you asked me something too. You asked me where people got their information from. I do from the 12 interviews that I've input data from 13 interviews that I've done. My good faith interpretation of how they've answered questions, and I don't ask people directly how they found out about Gamergate, but 12 of the people did give me an indirect answer. So 4 of them found out about Gamergate from YouTube, 2 from Twitter, 2 because they were fans of Zoe Quinn's, and this is the pro Gamergate side, mind you. 1 because they were a content creator at the time, 1 from live streams, 1 from the atheism community, 1 because they saw the news about the honey badgers being kicked out of the Calgary Expo, 1 from the Tumblr and Action subreddit, and 1 because of the various censorship controversies in the spring of 2015. But that's only 12 of the interviews I've input so far, so that's a very small data set. And that doesn't show where they got their news from necessarily, just how they found out about GG specifically.
Yeah, and I have to wonder about some of your interviews, if that impacted your credibility. You interviewed Crowton T, Peter Coffin. Well, I'm probably saying that last name wrong. And have a lot of content around those sort of people with bad reputations. And you...
Well, I don't know if Kraut's got a bad reputation, but...
he's known for the Dachshund server, okay?
Well, he denies that, but... I've not looked into it. I'm not like a...
You're not going to say either way, but no matter if you believe it or not, he still has the people still use that against him and be like, yeah, you had this sort of discord where you tried doxing people. That's the thing about communications. It doesn't come through in reality. Yeah, Miss Sparkles popped in. Crowton has a bad reputation. Is it earned or not? Actually, at the end of the day, I don't think what's actually true on the internet matters. It's just about how many people believe that particular thing. I think that's a problem that people don't.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That people don't fact check and make sure what's true. They just want to sort of write people off and echo what other people are saying.
Well, I
Like
do want to talk
Dev is
about. Sorry. Tell
yeah,
me about
Dev
Dev.
is yeah, no, Dev just has a great case where he has a lot of people after him nowadays for things I tried to look into. I'm like, I don't understand why he gets so much hate. They have these really autistic arguments overall. Seems like because he's a centrist, everyone's at war. So, and sometimes they have this passive aggressive thing. I know Dev's done some sort of baity things to really get his reputation. I'm just bringing this up as a matter of, do you feel, as someone who's trying to be neutral, such as Dev, involved in Gamergate, you don't get that feeling that people are coming after you for that?
No, I think that the primary way that the people who are very much against Gamergate today want to deal with me is by ignoring me for the most part. But the
Yes.
Kickstarter is succeeding despite their best efforts, I guess. So
Yeah. Well,
but
Joe
do
probably
you think do
prop.
you think there's something wrong with interviewing, like say Kraut or Peter Koff and these more controversial figures, as you say?
I think people will just have the in-group tribalism and be like, "You're not with us, so we can't listen to you." At the end of the day,
Hmm. Maybe.
I think Dev gets that shit all the time. People give him shit for not doing the trucker video. It's become a meme. People like to. It sounds like a meme, but some people go after him more seriously for this. I just, the way people operate on the internet is not always logical, and some people, like, I got called when I was sort of doing some stuff. I was talking about ethics, and I got called like a Kotaku journalist by one random YouTuber I've never met or talked to. So I find that weird. So let's get into the ethics side of things. So, how long do you think the ethics really reigned supreme? Because I've been talking to a lot of people about Gamergate. They think the ethics, like, conversation just was for a week, and then all the bad actors came in. But let's.
I don't know. I mean, because ethics was discussed all throughout Gamergate's history. I think that Gamergate as a centralized focus on ethics and games journalism. I guess like the primary time period in which like ethics dominated the focus was uh 2014, 2015, and like maybe parts of like maybe 2016 too. I guess with SafePoint. And I guess like Deep Freeze continued to be updated all throughout that time. So like I don't think there was a point where like it stopped being about ethics, but I think that in 2015 we started to see more people coming in. People like me actually. I got involved with Gamergate in the spring of 2015. Um, More people were coming in because they were opposed to censorship and they were really concerned about censorship of games and also censorship of online conversations. And so you started to see more and more people coming in where that was their primary focus in 2015. But people were still continuing to discuss ethics well beyond then too. So
And it also did have a troll element in the beginning with Mr. Medicare as the internet anarchist. And there was a third party that caused confusion all about. I just realized I sort of blew past what I was talking about with you about the sort of, any thoughts on what I said previously about, it doesn't matter if it's true, people are going to just believe rumors because it's really easy, and it typically.
well, that might be how people operate, but that's probably not how people should operate. As content creators, like people like you and I should probably be like more careful than that, I guess.
Well, of course, I'm trying to find a good balance between entertainment, and I'm failing miserably. I'm sure.
Me too, so don't feel too
Did you
bad.
bring that up with Wick in particular?
The balance between entertainment and factual information.
Yes, because you have an audience, you want to try to entertain them, but you want to also try to present things as honestly as you can. And sometimes it's a a double-edged blade.
I struggle with that. I think it's difficult, especially since I feel like I'm so serious all the time now. Um, I think it's probably one thing I'm looking at right now. So you know Destiny, right, Vincent?
Yeah, of
Like
course.
you know
How
how
can you
he
avoid
does.
it?
You know how he does like anything else, where he has this kind of like a wild, rambunctious, a little bit off the walls kind of show. But then he'll also
Yeah.
have like bridges where it's more of like a relaxed setting about discussing serious issues. So I think
Yes.
that like having those kind of outlets, like having having an outlet where you have that permission structure to have a little bit more fun. Maybe that's like a specific podcast that you do, or like a specific activity that you do as a person who's not a content creator. Having that like, could probably be useful. Having that outlet where you can mix in the fun and the wildness, and then also have like more serious settings too, where you're doing more serious work. But I'm not sure. It's something that I don't know how to balance myself, and I'd like to figure that out at some point. But I mean, it's important, right? It's
Yeah.
important if you want to be successful at doing what you and I do. So
Yeah, it's also audience capture in the end of the day. I'm mostly into this for the study of digital communication. So I do a lot of experimenting on my channel. I would be fine with trying to figure out the surefire method to get a great audience, good reception, but typically this parasocial relationship, especially in streaming, I think is rather strong. You have a sort of incentive to sort of feed into your audience. And there's some people who push back on it. Like Dev is an example of someone who pushes back on it. Destiny is also another person who tends to, at least, I don't know if they literally do it, but they say that they push back on their audience and they do purges. And I think that's the proper way to do it, but it's some people would criticize like the audience is king. What do you think about that philosophy? Just audience is all the customer is always right.
no, I don't think so. You're a
Mm,
person. You've got a product you're trying to promote. Make it however you want to make it. Now, with that being said, you might make decisions that are unpopular or that degrade the quality of the product, and people are less willing to purchase your product or watch your stream. So you can fuck it up, but if, fundamentally, what we're doing is news. Like we should, or well, if you're like someone like me or you, or Destiny or something like that, you're creating like a news program, kind of to some extent. So I think you
uh,
probably do have something more important than just trying to please the audience. You do have to like try and be. You should try to be factually accurate in the information that you promote to your audience, and also too, if you're an artist, if you're a gaming streamer, for instance, or an art streamer, um, you shouldn't try to cater to the audience. You should make the artistic product that you want to create. And now you can listen to feedback from the audience. Maybe people point out something that you're wrong about or a better way to do things. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's your show, it's your stream, it's your news program, it's your artistic live stream, whatever it is. Make whatever it is you want to make. You're king.
yeah. Yeah, talking about the audience, which we never addressed. It probably is good to do. I'll start. My thought on the original Gamergate, it started off as ethics from everything I saw, and the sort of social justice element definitely was pushing into trying to take over the space in a couple of different ways. And it just kept up pushing, and they pretty much won because there was a lot of political actors. My take is very similar to internet anarchists, but I wouldn't have said instead of
Aristocrat.
just attack. Yeah, sorry. So many various names out of there. That's a name I aristocrat. Yes, that a lot of people came in with profit in their eyes and sort of dampened what the actual grassroots movement was about and co-opted it, along with a certain element of trolls, sort of just trying to see pretty much people just shit talking and fighting. Okay. They wanted to turn it just into a drama game, and they partially got their way through various means. Your go on that overall?
I don't know if I'd say that GamerGate was successfully co-opted. Like, I don't know what that means. What does that look like? I don't think that like the
Means
majority.
the big names that came out of it weren't probably the people like Sargon, Milo, the people who came out of it successfully with building a channel off of the back of Gamergate or in part. Why the smaller people who went away from it, like who from the Gamergate movement, literally in the movement, went on to be successful. None of the like Anita, I
I don't
don't
know, like
even know if
define
it's specific.
successful, because like I could probably like name a lot of people who like were successful after, like due to
Okay,
GamerGate though. Like I don't know, right?
who's successful? Who came out of Gamergate?
In terms of like successful in life, like Kathy Young,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Or like Ash Short, who's like the senior editor of the Daily Wire now, or Kraut, probably, right?
Yeah, it depends on what you define success as. But yeah, I guess you can take that as contentious. Different people want different things from anything that they get into.
But there definitely was this element that was a small group of people. I think ultimately that I think like I guess ended up being like trolls. The GG Revolt crowd. Are you familiar with GG Revolt at all?
Okay.
Or well, they wouldn't categorize themselves as trolls. That might not be a little. That might not be fair. But like I think they like ended up becoming that.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's get into the more contentious topics. So I didn't bring this up last time. Grum's involvement in the original Gamergate. From what I know, he is sort of taking heat for a video game scam. Sargon also had a video game, but I think he got out of that by giving refunds, correct?
He refunded people who asked for one. Yes,
Okay. A
he had to
technical
proactively
difference.
request. But yeah,
Then did anyone make a big deal that he didn't refund money to them later on?
to my knowledge, no one's complained.
Okay. To your
But I haven't
knowledge.
but also that's I don't follow Sargon stuff. Like maybe he did a live stream 2 years ago or something with somebody who was upset. Who knows?
Yeah, you can't be held accountable for
Yeah.
things that you don't know. Bringing that particular element up, a lot of people want to hype up Grum's involvement in that. I think that's rather lame. Overall, he's trying to go off of the back of that. But I haven't seen much talk about ethics in this new thing. So I really think they shouldn't be calling themselves anything the spiritual successor, Gamergate 2, or anything like that. It's
Yeah, I
just
agree.
a marketing ploy.
When Mark,
And I may go on.
yeah, it's just a marketing ploy. I agree. But Mark's involvement with the original Gamergate, as far as I can tell, it's relatively light. I know he did a stream with Sargon and watched SPJ Airplay with him, with Sargon on his show, and then he also he ran League for Gamers. But like aside from that, like I don't know of him like doing anything.
Yeah, he was pushing some sort of group. That seems
League for
why he
Gamers,
was like,
yeah.
he has a he has a history of trying to use really weird marketing techniques overall. And other things that I want to ask about in particular matters. Let's talk about the Allison lawsuit against Smash JT. Not about that. Let's talk about if that happened a lot. You linked me to an article about that, and for some reason my Discord is being crashing on me. Let me try to restart that. I mean, if you so why I tried to restart that, just with your words, you want to enlighten my ass on that
Yeah.
particular matter?
So there weren't a huge amount of lawsuits during Gamergate, to my knowledge. I know that there was a lawsuit between the Honey Badger Brigade and Calgary Expo, where the Calgary Expo banned the Honey Badgers and allegedly defamed their character. The Honey Badgers sued them, though it was ultimately thrown out of court, I believe. Then also, too, Zoe Quinn and Aaron Joni had a legal battle, but I don't really know that much about this, to be honest. This is an area where I've not done a huge amount of research. I wouldn't view it as being like a primary GamerGate topic, since it's more like about their personal relationship than anything specifically related to like the games industry.
Okay.
But I believe Quinn had a gag order against Joni, and Eugene Volok considered this to be a violation of Joni's First Amendment rights, but I don't know that much about the details. This huge legal battle between them two.
Yeah, I don't know how that would have played out. I looked into this. Someone said
Joni won, right? Or they had like a deal.
Well, I just pulled that up. I don't know. I just know Jody loves Chachi. I'm trying to make a bad joke about Happy Days. At the end of the day, I asked about that particular matter. It's not a big deal. There's probably stuff that came up afterwards, like I knew at the Escapists. There's some bias that came around with the Escapists that resulted in a lawsuit. Like they brought in someone.
Oh, because of the Star Citizen lawsuit, right? The Escapist.
I think that came down to they felt new management came in. They brought in new management, and they were like, "You guys support it." Didn't come down hard enough on GamerGaters or GamerGate. So if you're that sort of perspective, we're going to blackball you. There was a lawsuit around that a while ago. I don't want to go too deep into that because that I don't have the files on hand for that particular matter.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, so I wouldn't add too much.
I just want to bring up anything related to that particular matter that I can particularly.
Oh, the Hulk Hogan and Gawker lawsuit. That was obviously a big deal.
That was related to that's the thing. I went over the documentary. I actually did a comparison between the Red Pill documentary back years ago. That might even be private, and the sort of Gawker, the documentary on Gawker verse that was connected to Gamergate in some way. That's what I didn't understand.
So no, Gamergate people were widely cheering on Hulk Hogan though because they didn't like Gawker. And follow it. It was a topic of conversation at the time regularly.
Okay, one of those sort of fringe issues.
Yeah.
And another thing, there's many different elements going on recently. Like Goonergate seems to be a topic of discussion. Something I could have warned all these people about months ago with the religious right. James Lindsay's been calling them the woke right. Call them what you want. Did you see any of those sort of figures in the original Gamergate? Sort of.
So like Melanie Mack, like her.
Yeah. She's
so
part of.
I don't know if she was involved with the original with Gamergate or not. If she was, it was a very minor role. I do remember seeing her like on Twitter. So she like existed back then for sure, but I don't know if she identified as pro GG or neutral or what.
Yeah,
or was even aware
but
of it.
there wasn't any religious elements, any religious right figures. Because I know there was plenty in Sad Puppies. Which
yes, there were Sad Puppies, yeah. So, but were there in terms of Gamergate? I mean, there were some religious people like Escape Velocity. He's on Twitter. He's not like a e-celeb or anything, but he's like a religious person. And then
did he want to oppose his religious values on games journalism? As
I'm gonna
it
check
seems.
Twitter right now and let's find out. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Now there were like a few people like on the fringes who were like I guess like Christian nationalist types.
Okay.
Not like any big names I could think of really, but like a couple smaller people on Twitter.
But were they in line?
Go ahead.
Were they in line with the other Gamergaters, or did they have just some fringe policies they wanted to push?
I don't think they were trying to push their views on games journalism specifically. I can't think of any specific incident, at least, where they did.
I mean, there was some talk, if I remember correctly, in Reddit, since you were a mod, you had discussions about some of the sort of bigoted talk. I forget. Go into the details of that.
So I was a moderator of the Social Justice and Action subreddit. So was the Hat Man. We, over the course of the subreddit's history, at one point, we had people coming in who were starting to post some more like far right content. And initially, our view was we'll let the upvotes decide what's on the page or not. But I guess the people who were posting this stuff, either they noticed that we weren't censoring it, or they just thought, oh hey, look, this is a safe place where we could post stuff like this, and so it just became more and more of a problem where people were posting like more far right stuff on the Social Justice Action subreddit. And we ultimately decided, the moderators and I, as a moderator at the time, we decided to make a rule, basically stopping like openly racist content from being posted.
Censorship? How dare you? They were probably just memeing. No, I agree. The sort of meme until you make it. That's actually come to a fucking loggerhead now. If you're looking outside on Twitter, other people just, yeah, I tend to have a larger bubble than a lot of people who look into this matter. Probably why my content tends to be ADHD, because I like to look into little different areas on the internet and try to see how they come together. Like anyone who's been following along with James Lindsay or other people like Trigonometry, those guys actually brought it up originally about the woke right, which I agree with the general sentiment. Maybe it's not the right name for it or not. That's what we have. It doesn't seem like it was present in the original GamerGate. The worst you had
No, it doesn't. I don't I mean, like, some of the people who, like Milo, for instance, like became a right-wing Christian, like religious theocrat years after
but that was
GamerGate.
after he got canceled for his appearance on Joe Rogan talking about being molested by a priest, and that being a big deal. What about the sort of right-wing culture in the original GamerGate do you think is worth commenting on?
I think that, I mean, there were definitely a lot of conservative people who supported GamerGate. I don't think it was the majority. I know that out of the people I've interviewed for the optional survey, 33% of them were planning on voting for Trump, and 27% were planning on voting for Biden. This matchup ultimately ended up not happening, so who knows how they would have voted in the end. But it's still like a very diverse group of people to this day. There were conservatives involved, and they run the gambit though. Like there's like normal conservatives who just like want lower taxes, and then like there are like far right, like religious conservatives, I guess, like someone like Game Diviner, who I've interviewed. You know, nice guy, I get along with him. But you know, he's got a very deeply Catholic worldview, and he doesn't support like censorship, I don't think, of people who are, you know, of video games based on his Catholic religion or anything like that, to my knowledge. But like on a personal level, like he's against liberal democracy because he thinks that liberal democracy is doomed to become woke. So like, yeah,
yes,
there's like, they run the gamut.
Would fall like into the woke right category.
Yeah, he would be like a woke right person.
Probably one of the more normie ones. That is something that's been going over. And the sad fact of the matter is a lot of those people pretty much think identity politics. Something I highly disagree with. You don't like the left doing it. Why would you use that tool? Do you believe in it or not is the first thing. I think they might be using it as, I don't know the deal with it. They might be using it as a tool, but it seems like a tool that once you start using identity politics, that the social justice people that definitely infested certain sectors of the gaming industry to come in, why would you use that tool against the enemy? I just have my thoughts on that.
Well, you have people who don't believe in like norms or who believe that the other side is so bad that I'm justified in doing anything I want, essentially, I guess.
Yes, I've
Like we
had
see
many
this today.
conversations with people like that.
We have a conversation right now in the political streamer space, because Destiny's of the view that that Democrats should stop caring so much about norms, and I disagree with him on this. So like, now
Well,
this
that
is
might be because
they,
of his freaky shit that came out, or maybe not. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with Destiny. I just know the Lauren Southern crap, and some DMs were leaked.
yeah.
I didn't get deep into it because most people have reasons for why they decide to. Destiny has a rather weird history. I respect him in some ways. In other ways, I'm like, I don't know what the man is thinking.
You know, Lauren Southern was involved with GamerGate.
She was? What?
Just barely, but yeah, she went to the Toronto meetup. Yeah, there's even pictures of her there.
Interesting.
GGNTO. Look it up on Twitter right now. You might want to see a picture of her. Hashtag GGNTO.
Yeah, you can bring up anything. Another element that I want to sort of, let me get into the actual sections I want to use, which are, I want to see if some of these tactics were used during the original GamerGate from your knowledge. Examples from what's currently going on. So I got a few highlights on my alt Twitter, which I basically just use to for streams. There's this a particular matter here. A lot of people like bringing up this article here. I have to switch. You seeing it? So it's the Farm Folks CEO.
On Boob Physics. We don't want to attract nasty people.
And I agree. Alyssa Mercante definitely was a little bit biased with this. She got a lot of shit for this. Probably more shit than she deserves. So the sort
Summarize
of outline
her argument.
She doesn't really have an argument. Let me just outline the sort of details and see if you could bring it back to anything that happened in the original GamerGate. So the story is, and I'm barely certain this is correct, I did a stream on it a while ago. Basically, this guy at Farm Folks CEO did a post about sort of jiggle physics, how much that he wanted to use for the game. Consultancy group that was not Sweet Baby Inc., it's Black Girl Gamers, gave him shit for it. So he apologized. So simple enough. Then a whole bunch of the people trying to be the Sweet Baby Inc. Purity or whatever you want to call them, sort of went after him for apologizing. That seems to be a trend. Never bend the knee. They're like, you've probably heard this narrative. You should never bend the knee to these people. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Can't listen to them. The famous Grum's tweet that really had me suspicious about him. You can't treat those with the woke mind virus with good faith or politely. And I'm like, that's going to be a bad precedence. You're going to just, who's woke? Who has the woke mind virus? It turns out anyone who goes against him sometimes gets called woke. He doesn't do it directly, but indirect method. So I looked into this matter. So he was complaining about all the right wingers going after him, giving him shit. So some of the people are like, maybe you should talk to this guy, Grums. So he talked to Grums, and they sort of flipped the narrative back around. And there's still several lies here. Like she didn't retract or update the article. Some really autistic what I consider autistic arguments. Like technically, they might be incorrect, but you're sort of cutting out all the context from this and sort of ignoring that she did do, knowing that she did sort of do a correction, which I think was good on her behalf at the time. I'm not going to defend some of her other actions within this whole mess, but I think this is the best she can do. Did anything like that happen in the original Gamergate, to your knowledge, going after one SJW went after, they apologized, and people from the other side attacked them? That's basically what I'm asking.
Not that I can specifically think of.
Okay.
I mean, and it very well may have happened, right? Like, this Gamergate was a huge conversation that spanned years and thousands of people. So, like, I'm sure something like that probably did happen. I know that there were like SJWs who attacked developers.
I'm not expecting you to be infallible.
Like Tim Saray was attacked, for instance, by Zoe Quinn, or Troy Levitt by Brianna Wu. Like, there were developers who were attacked, but like, even, well, Troy Levitt never apologized, but Tim Saray did. But I don't think like people really attacked him. I think people were more or less like, well, he's just like a normal guy who wants to make his game. So like, who cares? Like, it's understandable that he doesn't want a bunch of heat on him. But I don't remember people attacking like Tim Saray for apologizing necessarily at the time. Like, I'm sure if you looked on Reddit, you might find like some comments who were like, "Ah, fuck him." But
yeah, it seemed like the pressure of the other side got him to go to Kotaku for that article. And yes, she definitely did crop it in a certain way to sort of frame them as the sort of attackers.
Well, one thing you
that she didn't
brought up that's interesting, Vincent, is that it was like a progressive consulting firm. Like, that's something that is, or at least seems to be, relatively new. Like, I don't remember there being too many of these firms. Like, maybe like Silver String Media, but like, this wasn't like a very common thing back in 10 years ago, back during Gamergate.
I'm sure not. I heard something that could be correct or incorrect, that who was the guy who committed suicide and due to I think maybe
Alec
the
Aloka?
boyfriend of, maybe the Zoe post, someone related to that.
Well, no, Zoe Quinn's boyfriend after Aaron Joni, Alec Aloka. And I'm sorry, before Joni, actually. They dated in 2012, but later on, Quinn claimed that he kept her locked in his apartment and sexually assaulted her. But
yeah,
this story may not be accurate, because during the period that she was supposedly locked in her home, the post-millennial seems to think that she was making a lot of tweets during that period, but I don't know specifically. I can't speak to like whether or not. Yeah,
it's fine. How it's reported is, I think, just saying the narrative. This is what I just focus on, the narrative. We don't know if it's true or not. This is what happened, but he did commit suicide. And I think some people have this sort of story that the sister gave money from the suicide to a weird ghost. I really think it comes down.
That's actually true. Well, she funded Baby Ghosts. Baby Ghosts,
who,
and then Baby Ghosts funded a bunch of smaller companies, including Sweet Baby
Inc. Yes. Okay. I mean, no matter what side, I'm someone who's like, I want to know the truth, the actual facts. Is this true or not? Yes, it definitely seems to be a push. I think a lot of this came about first because of Me Too movement. Then I think it really ramped up during Black Lives Matter. They really were pushing this progressive stuff. And I think the trans stuff, they pushed a little bit too far, along with all the sort of elements in our culture, which sort of turned against, like the Me Too with feminism, Black Lives Matter, them scamming. People started waking up. And this is what this backlash is due to. I'm just finding it funny. They're trying to do this in over video games. I just have issues with it.
So let me ask you, Vincent. What is you talked about the woke right, and you talked about like Melody Mack. I know that she was involved in something recently where she was criticizing a game. Is that right?
Yes, I think someone tweeted something about the First Descent where that started a conversation, I think, with a Dread Roberts person, and that sort of started having the more religious elements being like, yeah, let's stop promoting this moral degeneracy. Okay, this is not what we want in gamers. And people are like, another side, which they're calling GamerGate. A lot of people have used that term before. The Gooner Gators, they're owning it now. At least Smash JT and a couple of other people. They'd be like, stop with this moral grandstanding. So it's a fight between the more religious element of this movement and the more hedonistic element of the movement. Like
What
if someone likes it,
specifically were they trying to say though? Like Melanie Mac, what specifically did they say about the game?
they're that this is something they want to censor. Okay, they don't think this sort of moral degeneracy. If I'm having it correct, which I think I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, they don't want this moral degeneracy pushing. Sort of like having any trans elements in a game is pushing trans propaganda, which I think is a incredibly reductive take. There could be some cases where I could see an argument for a company pushing trans agenda in a video game, but I haven't seen any serious ones so far. Hypothetically, I could understand it.
Yeah, well, if there's a schism in the anti-SJWs, and you've got the people who love their sexy anime girls versus the people who are religious people, religious fundamentalists, then I'll side with the anime girl people.
Yeah, I typically will also. I don't really care for their own sort of I use the Batman. Gamers are the most oppressed class, and he like breaks the glass ceiling. I use that meme all the time. I'm like, these guys are just using this weird gamers are the oppressed class, white males. And there is a certain element to that. The gamers are dead definitely helps amplify that. And I think the sort of inability to acknowledge Cabrutus's the attempt to take down Cabrutus created a sort of Streisand effect around it originally, but 9 months later, and people are still bringing it up. And I'm like this. Let me bring up this in particular. I wanted to know if it had any connection to original GamerGate. Doesn't sound like it. You guys had much of that, but like this particular one. This might be it. Smash, who's apparently a married man with children of his own. Great way to start out. Seems that think another married man with children of his own setting boundaries, having morals and values is becoming exactly what you're fighting against. Hilarious. I've been fighting against DEI relentlessly. And one of the very first people to defend him when Mercante was going after his wife. Oh, lesson learned, I guess.
What's he replying to, Smash?
It's a whole sort of thing here. I don't want to go deep into the weeds of this, but
well, I just want to find out what they're originally complaining about. Like, what's the game? What's the game element?
Oh, it's First Descent. Oh, watch out! Watch out! This is what
base
started
motherfucker. Absolutely, that is what gamers.
I agree. I mean, I'll take it. I would rather have good game mechanics, but if you want to put a big let me not put that on. When you're so he does that. Any person with a mana.
Say no. This is not where the future of gaming should be headed. The constant promotion of half-naked women as the greener side of gaming is getting ridiculous. And I'm beginning to think that these people who say they want to save gaming don't actually want to save it. So many people claim to care about morals in the future generations, and not giving an inch of progress to devs who push woke ideology or whatever else. But then they'll turn around and tell young men and women to support titles that throw this stuff in your face. Most of what I've seen for now from these accounts are butt cheeks and cleavage. Seriously, How is this making gaming better? All we're doing is pushing normies in the same direction, but on a parallel track. People may argue we just want to push back on ugly women agenda, just be trying to make a point to the lefty weirdos. Okay, so where do you draw the line? Because there doesn't appear to be one. This is why we need real adults with real ambitions / aspirations and a mature outlook on the future to lead the charge in this industry. People who have their priorities straight and their arousal in check. This is a pretty unhinged take, I'll say, Vincent. If you don't like the game, just don't buy it. Like, what the fuck's your problem, bro? Chill the fuck out.
I agree with that. I'm actually on the side of Smash when it comes to this. I think they're becoming exactly like the SJWs. Smash. Yeah. They're using victim status to sort of get there. And here's someone I've criticized for literally citing like the Catholic Church in a couple of articles, and everyone just brushes over the fact who he cites.
Woke ideology and Christian morals aren't the same thing. Well, you know what's funny, Vincent? You know what the woke people would say during GamerGate? And I agree with the statement on its face. Gaming's for everyone. That's true, I guess. Gaming is for everyone now, right? You've got everyone from like crazy woke scolds to Christian theologians all having an interest in the gaming industry and all wanting to push their own agendas and narratives, for better or worse.
Yeah, and I've always been against trying to kick people out. You're not going to enjoy the same things. And there's also the sort of Steam charts, trying to do a sort of a popularity contest. It seems to be a popularity contest with these people. I've gone over a couple of things with Smash JT and that parent side. Like Words of Paradise had that shit show trap that I tried to push them to think about ethics that turned out so badly. Not having standards, you're letting these guys, by not having standards, you're basically ceding ground to these people. But I don't want to.
But also, like, why should the industry like have to look a certain way? Like, what is this like weird idea? Like, oh no, the industry is making too many games with big boobed women, or the industry is making too many games that are X, Y, Z. Like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, bigger than Hollywood. Like, there's enough room here, enough money here to make games for everybody. There's like no single future for what gaming looks like. And these people, the cultural critics, they're always going to be there, the left-wing ones and the right-wing ones. Some of them are going to be more powerful than others at various points in time, but that's probably never going to go away either. I think you just always have to oppose censorship. And it's like, if they want to like make their critiques and like make their recommendations for what games they think people should play based on their moral value system, that's fine. But yeah, don't try and push it on others. That's all.
It's when they try to push it on the industry, like Anita started doing. Okay, she started having influence on the industry. People started listening to her, and I understand the problems with the speech that Kim Belair gave. That was, joking or not, it definitely sounded bad. I even went over that when it came out.
Yeah, but I did.
The whole narrative that they just keep on harping. Like, here's another example. Did this ever happen? Did a content creator, like with Smash JT, Sweet Baby Inc. emailed my wife, a relative of Sweet Baby Inc. member reached out to censor our last video? Yes. Watch our response.
So do you know what did happen during GamerGate So what did happen during GamerGate is there was a lot of infighting. That is 100% true. And there was, especially around after Airplay, like late 2015, early 2016, the infighting in the movement seemed to be quite bad. And there was this sort of split, I guess you could say, between like the more ethics people, and not even like the more ethics people, but like the split, there's a group called GG Revolt kind of broke off from Gamergate, and they used a lot of the similar kind of like rhetoric about how like they didn't support liberal values either. Like they were arguably like they were like against free speech as well.
Okay.
And like
they were probably just masked on fascists, authoritarians of some flavor. banding together. And yeah, I mean, even Sad Puppies had the Rabbit Puppies movement. John De La Rose is an interesting character. He's sort of moved from he wasn't in the original GamerGate. He was I think he was part of the original Rabbit Puppies. Then he moved to Comicsgate, and now he's sort of in this space. So just something I want to bring up. He's part of the religious right movement, and he comes off as a troll, and he pushes a lot of his stuff. But yeah, this seemed really weird. I mean, I understand if you get doxxed and harassed, yeah, bring it up. But did something like this ever happen? I mean, this guy clearly is just trying to get the sort of victimhood clout. Was that an element in GamerGate?
Oh yeah, sure. People would do this all the stuff. Like, yeah, the people who faked their own harassment, like Brianna Wu, or the Hatman.
But on the GamerGate side, the pro GamerGate side,
Hatman false flagged harassment against himself on GG Revolt to blame them.
Oh God! He admits to it.
Yeah, he admits to it. Well, he says that he doesn't remember this time period very much, but the admins say that his IP address matches the account that was harassing him, and so he believes it was true, but his memory fails him.
Okay. So you at least have one example. I just find this sort of this victim.
But like I was attacked actually in real life physically.
You were attacked physically?
Yeah, this is the first time I've talked about it publicly, I guess. But we don't have to get into it though.
Okay. I'll believe you. I mean, you're not getting any clout from letting that known for this channel.
No.
Okay, I just find this really weird than this sort of chain response.
But that was like years later. I was attacked this year actually. But
wow. Someone who's against GamerGate?
Well, someone who spread misinformation about me being a Trump supporter because I support GamerGate. And because of that, I was assaulted.
Lovely. Yeah, you keep trying to pull me into that Trump thing. I'm like, I'm not going to touch that. I have to keep up with politics. I don't want to talk about pure politics, or at least politicians. I don't like attacking people. I mean, sometimes it's fun to make fun of people and throw some jokes at them, but it's really their ideas that I'm like, yeah, if this person changed their ideas, I don't like the moral grandstand. I just think having standards that you uphold should be something. If I was in the original GamerGate, I would definitely be one of the ethics cuts because I can understand, and I still agree. The ethics side of it was completely in the right for pointing out what Dev said about Phil the Fish, Short Fat Otaku, Indefensible series. They won twice when someone else could have actually gotten that and could have gotten their game made. And even that whole thing when Zoe Quinn stuff, there's still a lot of crazy talk about that. But yeah, this whole victim mentality that they seem to be co-opting from the left, I think
it's fine if you're actually victimized and you want to talk about that. Like I might talk about the assault thing at some point. But like I think talking about it's totally fine. But obviously, like just because one, you have to make sure that the claims are true, and then two, I don't think like just because like you're victimized by someone, you received harassment, like that doesn't mean that you're right or that like people should treat you as though you're right or consider all criticism to be harassment. Obviously,
yeah. I mean, you told me last time that not Zoe Quinn, Nita tried to do the sort of what was it? Play the victim card like twice before it actually got pushed through.
Oh no, Brianna Wu probably.
It was Brianna Wu.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make mistakes. So yeah, but this is sort of weird here. These people just contacted this YouTuber that they emailed the wife when she's part of it was actually during the Grums sort of thing when Leon came on to defend Grums that he's like, why don't You don't talk to any lefties. They're just horrible, horrible people. They won't talk to you. I'm like, okay, maybe I should start trying to talk to them. This is one of the accounts I followed because I tried to understand some of the other side perspective. I don't agree with a lot of things she says, but assuming it's a she. They're presented as a she, why not? The wife of the host on their channel, her emails on the link tree. I I just find this incredibly disingenuous. And that they're making a big deal. Emailed my wife. Why are you still trying to? I think I even
I don't know.
saw this and I put, look, it's a witch. It's like a witch hunt. If you have any connection with Sweet Baby Inc., and people sort of point this out, guilt by association, the fucking movement is at this point. Yes, criticize Sweet Baby Inc. for their horrible ideas, for what they do. But just because you work for this company, why these people are just going after people just related? I'm guessing that happened a lot in Gamergate on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, right? That people, I mean, like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, there are definitely people getting dragged into it. I guess on both sides too, right? You had like, I guess, what would be, I guess, like, what would be the best example of this?
Who McDizzle gaming? Who blocked you? This guy, Gothic's therapy. I'm just
Well, I guess,
curious.
like, I guess something I know, like, go ahead.
He's the
I
one
don't have a
who's
good example.
been doing the deep dive on the Grum's Ember 8 scandal. So
what's going on with that? I'm not followed.
well, I wanted to have him on, but apparently he's out and about. I can understand bad timing with that. I mean, he probably has one of the better videos on it. If you want to take a derail, I think I'm out of things to really go over.
I'm cool with talking about
Did
whatever.
you
I'm game.
understand? Are you still streaming?
Yeah, I'm streaming.
This might bring flack to you. Okay, let me get into that. McDizzle, we're going to watch your definitive edition, not your update, because there's a lot of shit about this. There's a lot of people. Actually, let's just go to his freaking Twitter. Because you haven't looked into it, I assume, because you got shit the one time you tried to. You had issues with Grums.
Hey, I'm fine with getting shit. That's not going to stop me.
Yeah. Just go to this particular thing. I mean, his videos aren't perfect. This last one was definitely more funny than not.
Well, how long is it?
Let's just watch his original one. Yeah, his short is 19 minutes. I mean, I was sort of out of topics. Let's conclude the sort of Gamergate talk. Anything? I mean, of course, I'll try to support your GoFundMe. I think your perspective on it is extremely based, trying to look for the truth and cutting through all the bullshit. But you're trying to understand why it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're trying to understand why these people coming from looking at Gamergate from different sides came to the conclusions they did about it, and sort of trying to find the most accurate truth about what was going on within the actual cutting through the noise to find the truth, but still trying to understand why people thought what they did about Gamergate. Am I getting somewhat close?
Yeah, okay. More or less. Like I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to interview a bunch of people. I'm going to hear their stories. And originally the project was supposed to be a lot smaller. I was going to interview like 20 people. But because I'm a little crazy, I decided to expand that and interviewed like closer to almost 80 people. But yeah, I want to find out what happened during Gamergate and document the people's stories about what happened. And then also check to make sure that they're telling the truth to the best of my ability, and try to create some sort of coherent narrative. Or narrative sounds so weird, but I guess a narrative.
Yeah, the
right?
narrative as close as you can to what actually happened.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah.
A
There is
narrative.
a lot of.
Yeah, the Wikipedia is bullshit. I'll say that. People want to use that. Yeah, they lie on Wikipedia. People lie all the time. What? Why does that justify? Just because the other side, your political opponents, I don't even see any people as enemies. I see just people. I'm an individualist at the end of the day. I think people should take accountability for their own actions and live up to those actions and not say, oh, they did something bad, so we're totally just. No, no, dude. Okay. Yeah, sure. Sort of use some rhetoric that is hyperbolic sometimes for a little bit of humor. But when you get into just the territory of just lying and having to keep on doubling down on stupid ass lies, I think that's both a problem ethically, as gay as that ethic cucking sounds. I think there should be certain standards most people should hold, at least to themselves, or else just everything. What certain people, liberal people, say about liberals, that they have no limits. No, most liberals believe in limits. Believe in people should take. We're individualists for the most part. Believe people should take accountability, or at least explain where they're coming from, even if they don't agree. Like, you want to give me shit for being an asshole to certain people? Fine. Okay. This is the reason why I'm going to be an asshole to certain people. I don't respect them. You have any thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I'll just tell people how I feel, but like, I don't.
Doesn't win you
what's your
friends
core
typically.
question? What's your core question here, Vincent?
It is based individuality, where you actually back up what you say. You do the best you can to back up the claims you make. And when someone misconstrues something you say, because you're either wrong in the moment, because you have the wrong information and clarify it later, or you word something in a particularly bad way for the sake of humor, or maybe you were drunk at the moment, as many people accuse me of. Yeah, you just explain things. If people don't want to believe you when you try to be honest, fuck them. Okay, I try to be
basically.
Yeah, Mark.
Based individualism, yeah. But I don't know if it's like based individual. It's like so many people will call themselves individualists. So they say that they judge people based on their individual character, but then obviously humans are very tribal people that fall into their traps.
You accept that.
Yeah.
I try to avoid the tribalism. I try to do what I can to sort of mitigate my tribal nature. There's still some things I'm very stubborn on that I get shit for. Okay, I can't help that. That's my opinion. I can tell you exactly why I hold certain opinions. Not going to go over it here because it's not really important. But
well, before we jump in to the other topic, though, I got to shout out the Kickstarter.
Absolutely. Before we do it, I definitely, Vincent Martin here, wholeheartedly agrees with the concept of Tachyon Blue. Are you going to use your real name for the book?
Yeah, Kevin McDonald.
Kevin McDonald. You don't happen to be another pen name, Christopher? No, that's Kevin McFadden. Sorry, McDonald. Yeah, I endorse the book because it might not be executed exactly what I like, and I'm sure I will have some nitpicks. That's sort of my thing. I can nitpick anything to death. I don't think that should be a problem. That's more about people don't want to voice sometimes little problems, which I'm willing to do. I'm sure there'll be problems with it, but the attempt to what he's attempting to do is something I'm completely in support of. I just hope the execution is done well and successfully pull it off.
Well, thank you, Vincent. I appreciate that. And if you have any critiques or nitpicks for me, by all means, hit me up and we can talk about them sometime on stream, okay?
Very possibly.
And you can support the project at gamergatebook.com or the People of Gamergate on Kickstarter. We're just over halfway to our goal of $6,000. So please, please, please back the project today. Let's get this over the finish line. Every little bit helps. Your $15 here, your $30 there. It helps. Thank you.
And don't conflate what the people of GamerGate movement in the beginning were doing with what these almost literal clowns are doing. I think this is a little bit dismissive. So let's go over this, then close out the stream.
All right.
You can tell me to pause if you want to give me any thoughts on this.
A little over 2 weeks since my investigation started on the crowdfunding scandal of Ember, and it's nearing its close. A lot of people are really interested in this, and a lot of people are asking questions. A larger YouTuber covered it, and through their findings and their time talking with Mark, it really validates everything we talked about was true. There was about 600,000 crowdfunded in total over 8 years, when Mark himself said that a demo should take about 6 months and cost about $60,000, with only a little over 100,000 of that being transparent and visible.
I'm gonna have to speed up McDizzle here. What? You think I'm wrong on that, tacky
No,
boy?
speed it up. I agree.
And subtitling. Hell, there should be live subtitling for my ass.
Mark took 2 years away from the development of the game while continuing to crowdfund it hard during that time, while making everyone think that he was developing the game and it was his full-time job. And lots of deception. We're going to dig into all that.
And I am going to, since I know the details on that, he explained away the 2 years absence recently in a Twitter post. He was taking care of his sick children. That's his excuse. Okay, he didn't do any work on the game because he had to take care of his sick children. But he was doing other stuff. I forget what he was doing.
Remember, Mark's not making a game. He's just making a demo, a spiritual successor to a game he's already made called Firefall. And he's not the only one making a spiritual successor to Firefall. Look at this. It's called Nexus Drop. It's only been in development for 1.5 years, and it appears to be a lot more feature-rich and just as far along as Mark is.
This is like mean, McDizzle, man. You're trying to compare Mark to other people who are actually competent, who knows what they're doing in the gaming industry, clearly, when he does not. Yeah, he had $500,000. How much did they have with this? Probably a lot less.
Mark is. It's one person, part-time, with no money, and it's a stark contrast to what's going on with Ember. In today's video, we're going to discuss the crowdfunding scandal of Ember. How did we get to where we are at today, and why it should not be surprising that Mark Kern is an absolute mess when managing money. We're also going to talk about what happens next. The whole thing is kind of jaw-dropping. I'm actually pretty proud of myself. I took on one of the largest voices in gaming, exposing a pretty large crowdfunding scam.
See, I think this was a mistake. He shouldn't pat himself on the back here. I mean, this isn't his first video on it. But, you know what? I doubt people actually watch this to criticize him for that particular point. I wouldn't even call that a criticism. I'm just like, I can see that as being a mistake, patting yourself on the back. Might give the detractors.
Well, he hasn't made his case yet.
Yep. Generally, also, another thing I find, you lose a lot of people if you don't put a lot of the meat front loaded. Ethical problems with that, you consider that sometimes poisoning the well. But the double standards of people, it's like mental gymnastics all over. But you are right. He does have other videos, so I guess he's going into this video assuming people have watched his previous videos. Fair enough.
Scandal, and it was just a bonus because it was Mark Kern. However, I invite anyone with their own views on anything to take a look at this and see what conclusion you come to. And my objectives were to bring awareness of this crowdfunding scandal, and I think that was successful. I got that man pretty rattled. I mean, he put this out in his Discord, and one of his backers responded with this.
And, to the game, I supported the game. And, now I'm just getting about all these things that's happening on Twitter. And I guess, I feel like when you said that you were winning and you're pinged everybody, it didn't really feel like winning.
Maybe winning's the wrong word, but we will win. Maybe future tense.
That's just a taste of the statements and questions Mark.
God, it's been downhill for a long time before this, and that Discord is gone now. He's moving everything to Twitter. He always wants to accuse trolls of, from what I've seen, should I say, accuse trolls and whataboutisms. Only people who complained are pretty much people just trying to take it down. Was that? I studied, I had a rhetoric class in college. So you look at the sort of things that certain people say, and you're like, this is just pure and utter bullshit rhetoric. There's generally nothing behind it. I'm sure you've seen that happen a ton of time. Correct?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I always find it people being persuaded by just pure and utter bullshit rhetoric with no logic behind it. I'm like, why? Confirmation bias is my running theory with that. They want to believe it.
You figured that out, Vincent. You're gonna be a very successful person.
Oh God.
Mark has been getting about Ember. Keep in mind, lots of people have contributed lots of money with the expectations set by Mark that they would have this done in early 2018, or at least the demo anyways. Let's lay out a bit of history about Mark Hearn, because with his history, none of this should be a surprise.
Yep, shouldn't be a surprise. And he's still, even to his response to McDizzle, well, not a direct response, saying people lying about the game. He's saying there is a game. Then later on, he says it's a demo. Do you consider just a demo for a game, an actual game?
No.
Okay. It's just our opinion. And scam? Yeah. Sorry, leftists are right. Language is sort of a social contract. I'm not social contract. Social construction. Social construct. But what is the purpose of the words? Okay. It's like letters of the law in the spirit of the law. People always want to go by the letters of the law, especially a grifter. Frankly, I don't use the term grifter because just like racist, I think it's overused. But calling Mark a con artist, I think is a better descriptor for him. But you don't know. You can disavow if you want to.
I don't know. I might disavow.
Quick background on Mark Hearn. He worked at Blizzard in 1997. He worked in Diablo 2, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and he left Blizzard in 2005. His next step in that same year was to co-found a game development company called Red 5 Studios alongside 3 other former Blizzard employees. He played a big part in the development of the game Firefall and became the CEO of the company in 2008. So he wasn't the CEO to start, but he eventually got there. In 2013, Mark was removed from his position as CEO by the Red 5 board of directors. Mark would talk about this a little bit. He would say that he didn't accept a Chinese bride. More recently, he said that the owners wanted WoW with guns and was offered bonuses if he agreed. He declined, and then they voted to remove him as CEO.
The internet's a weird place. There is this whole saga with him and Thomas Malin, where basically they were trying to say a whole bunch of stuff, and the guy that Grums and Mailer fired this one employee who worked on Thomas Mailer's game, actually DM'd me, and he dropped me a whole bunch of stuff in DMs about Mailer. Talked a little bit about Grums and said that he could be incorrect. He said he tried to convince him to read the Anarchist Cookbook. He might have, I'm thinking he misremembered it because a lot of the tactics seems to be taken from Rules from Radicals. A book that, strangely enough, Sargon promoted like 9 years ago. I found that interesting.
If you ask other people, including multiple Red 5 employees, it was because he was a thoughtless man who was terrible with money, which again is consistent with what we're going to talk about. I mean, listen to him talk about the notorious Firefall bus.
I'm going to use the esports bus we created, this gigantic 20-seat thing. It's got a built-in television studio, built-in server cluster, supports up to 3,000 players.
One of many unsuccessful ventures we'll be talking about.
I can sort of see where the fans of Grums would have a problem with this and maybe even get triggered. Like, why do you need to bring up the Firefall bus? He's trying to establish a certain pattern of mismanagement of funds.
Yeah,
I can see it. I do get it. I can see where people like to nitpick and like, you're just attacking his character. No, he's going over his history to sort of saying gross neglect. Would that even be work? Neglect? I can't say that word. Basically, you're so incompetent that it comes to a legal thing. Like, if you're this stupid, you shouldn't be taking money for a product, then lying about it because you're too stupid or too lazy in the aftermath of taking the money to complete it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You do have like a fiduciary responsibility to your owners, right? If it's like a publicly traded company.
Yeah, and if you're getting funding from crowdfunding, sorry, this applies to you.
Yeah, no, I have a
responsibility for your
to deliver the
project.
product. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who have a lot of cope about that, like Ethan Van Sciver. Okay, he's dragging his ass. I watched a ComicsGate video about basically a rise and fall about ComicsGate, and I'm like, interesting. A lot of these ComicsGate artists, they put up projects, they got the money. A lot of them just ended up nowhere.
In September of 2014, he started a studio called MEK Studios. They got $1 million in seed funding for an Oculus Rift Minecraft-like project. But by May of 2015, he was gone from the company. There was talks of shadiness with Mark Kern and Voxel Knots, but so much has been deleted, it's tough to track down. Maybe that's a topic for another video, though. Sometime in 2015, Crixa Labs was established. Mark said this about Crixa Labs in 2017, that it was a company founded to develop both Crixa, the tabletop RPG, and now Ember, the video game set in the Crixa universe. So he's the CEO of his new company, Crixa Labs, right? Not exactly. The CEO of Crixa Labs is actually a 79-year-old person with the same last name as Mark's. Now, I'm no lawyer, but I'm really interested to know if placing somebody in a CEO role that has no involvement operationally with the company is ethical.
Okay, GamerGate ethics guy. I think it's a little bit odd, especially when you claim to be the CEO so often.
It is weird. I don't know if it's unethical. I guess it would like depend, right? Like who are you reporting this to? Like legally, are they violating any laws in terms of this? I don't know. If they were, then
I
that'd
think
be a problem. But if
I
it's
think
just like
positioning himself to his customers as the CEO when it's really someone else. Yes.
If he's misrepresenting himself, then yes, then he's being unethical.
I think he briefly took CEO out of his Twitter bio, but I think it's back up. I'm not going to bother to check.
In June 2016, Mark Kern started a petition to make a spiritual successor to Firefall. You know, the game that he claims he's the creator of. And I'll even question that. Firefall was made by a team in which he was largely absent from. But his own ego wants him to take 100% of the credit for any success that it did have.
I probably would have done a disclaimer there, like reportedly by almost everyone who worked on it. It's good enough, but I'm used to people using a small little slip of language. Like, you didn't admit this. Yeah, I thought that was a given. You need to be ultra autistic about it. Why?
Mark publicly tried to get Firefall to tank so he could buy cheap IP. Imagine a former CEO wanting all of his ex-employees to lose their job because of his own ego. His Change.org petition was really successful because people believed in Mark at that time.
Those screenshots. That's really fast.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. Give it a reading.
If we get enough pledges for $500 in the next 48 hours, I will register the trademark for Firefall. They are more behind than I thought. We have to keep this secret for a while. This is going to be an epic troll. It means we can use the name Firefall and they can't. It takes 6 months to see if they challenge it. If they challenge, we have to hire a lawyer to argue they abandoned the mark. That's more expensive. But the claim that he was making is that he bought the trademark just to sell it.
We can go back. I mean, there is some clarity issues with this. I get it because I'm way too in the weeds.
Ego wants him to take 100% of the credit for any success that it did have. Mark publicly tried to get Firefall to tank so he could buy cheap IP. Imagine a former CEO wanting all of his ex-employees to lose their job because of his own ego. His change.org petition
Well, that
was really
doesn't-
successful because people believed in Mark at that time.
That doesn't
You don't
show
think
that he wanted it to fail, though, right? Those DMs.
Not necessarily. I do agree that doesn't. I think that would that is the implied that you could apply that from those DMs.
Well, I mean, you could have multiple reasons for buying the IP, though, the trademark.
Yeah, I guess a little bit more information. There's also this. Note, I think people have it backwards. I'm not asking for support to make a game. I'm asking people to convince me that there's a market left to make it. That's weird. Why this petition matters. If you want to see original vision of Firefall, sign this petition. When Firefall reached its peak in beta, there was blah, 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 registered accounts, blah, blah, blah. The game's original vision was open world, sandbox, war, played by players against enigmatic adversary known as the Chosen. Yeah, I don't know why I'm reading this. But I thought,
You know, the game that he claims he's the creator of. And I'll even question that. Firefall was made by a team in which he was largely absent from. But his own ego wants him to take 100% of the credit for any success that it did have. Mark publicly tried to get Firefall to tank so he could buy cheap IP. Imagine a former CEO wanting...
I do believe there's more sort of evidence out there to sort of support this belief that he wanted it to tank. But
Okay.
all of his
Maybe,
ex-employees
could
to
be.
lose their job because of his own ego. His change.org petition was really successful because people believed in Mark at that time. At this point, he was a big advocate for gamers. I think it's pretty clear that's because they're going to be his best customer. And there's a lot of things that Mark is really bad at, but one thing he's really good at is raising money. I should also mention that it looks like in January of that same year, he had a tax lien placed on his house for $265,000. It looks like in January of that same year, he had a tax lien placed on his house.
yeah, he really does go through these way too quickly. This is the docs Nick got a hit with. They like to cry, docs. I mean, sometimes the what people call docs sometimes just amazes me, and what people say about docs, and like it's more about the doxing, no matter legal or illegal, whether it's a dox or not. It's more about the spirit behind it.
I agree.
I think
Oh,
the intent.
or about the.
I think that's even written in it, but it's hard to tell the actual intent of a dox. Or sometimes it's not. But yeah, another criticism for this particular video, he has a couple where he goes over it. Maybe he thought this is just a quick one. So he would run, I don't know.
His house for $265,000.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talks.
Here comes the money.
He launched his first Indiegogo campaign in the summer of 2016. It was for one milestone of forums, website, and art for Ember. They delivered that and moved to the next milestone a month later. The next milestone was asking for $5,000. They smashed that and got over $20,000. This is for a number of things, including starting to build some 3D assets. This is where things start to lose the plot a little bit. So the plan is to break up the funding of the game into deliverable, playable milestones. Currently, each milestone is designed to be funded and delivered in less than 2 months. Sounds like a reasonable plan. I'm sure it'll go really well. He's got a bit of funding. He believes.
A little bit of cheek there. Little
that is
cheeky
insane,
there.
though, to expect to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought my project would take me like 3 months, 4 months. So I was.
You're just doing a book and you're trying to hit a wide scope. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm more curious where all this money went if he's got a tax lien. There's so many things. And every time he addresses this, he's just saying it's a whole bunch of lies. But he doesn't actually say where the lies are, or if he brings up particular lies, it's very minor stuff that doesn't actually really matter. Like, did that ever happen in the original GamerGate? Like, people just focus on the stupid little lies that random people made, and why the bigger criticisms were completely ignored?
I mean, like, I guess like a lot of the critiques of like GamerGate itself were that from like the anti-GamerGate people, I guess, right? I think a lot of them were like taking taking a statement from like a relatively small account, or even like something that like one person said, like even something like Milo said, it'd be like, oh, like this is what GamerGate people believe. Like drawing
the
wide
reductive
conclusions.
cherry picking,
rather than
I
focusing
think-
on like the core arguments that were being presented.
Yeah. Always hate that, especially when you find out, when you don't know that's being done, and when you do find out that that's being done, it's like, what the fuck? Probably why McDizzle brought up recently of all the people made videos, and some of them tend to be on the anti-woke side. They just think Mark is a clown, and I agreed with that for a while now.
Believes in this milestone format, which is similar to what publishers do. You know, you get to a certain point, you get more money. Rinse, dry, and repeat. So milestone 1 was completed pretty easy. Milestone 2, on the other hand, took about a year. Whether it's a year, a couple months, the reason why we're talking about it is Mark specifically designed his milestones to be completed within a couple months. After that goal is complete by the summer of 2017, he sets up another Indiegogo, this time asking for $20,000. Again, he smashes it out of the park for over $100,000. The ask for $20,000 was for a couple playable characters functioning inside and piloting the mechs, various suits, animation for the characters, weapon system concept and design, the first gun, basic shooting mechanics, scripting and coding, and sound and visual effects. That's what they were looking for from the $20,000. But remember, Mark blew that out of the water. At this point, that $20,000 was currently funding step 4 of 6 prior to the playable mock-up before the Kickstarter. And he even says no more funding going to be needed, and you'll get this as a reward. So as they continue...
So the documentation doesn't say this, but I'm sure he would have said, unless I'm missing it. That's the typical way that these things go. I understand delays within development, but man,
continue to raise more and more money and exceed that $20,000 goal. Mark put some additional stretch goals in there, including a pile of things that are meant to appear in the final game. We'll see what happens there. And this is where it continues to fall apart. At $60,000 to fund the fully playable mock-up. $60K, this is it. We fund fully and don't have to do any more milestones. We create the playable mock-up Thumper encounter, call down a Thumper mining mech, and defend it from waves of attacking Sihu shapeshifting between humanoids and beast modes. I played the game. I don't see any shapeshifting. Fight a giant kaiju as it grapples with your Thumper and defeat it as the climax of the encounter. I didn't see any giant kaijus. This will be a demo for a future Fund the Full Game Team fundraiser to make the final game. So Mark says that $60K will fund the full playable mock-up. He also says it'll be done in roughly 6 months, and then another month or 2 from there, it'll be time for the Kickstarter. Life is good, right? So let's recap here. In July of 2017, Mark raised $114,000 between Indiegogo and PayPal donations. He says that in 6 months, the playable mock-up should be ready. A month or 2 later, that would be the Kickstarter. So 6 months from July, you know, we're looking at early 2018. A month or 2 later, the Kickstarter is still in early 2018. Now, the last update in the Indiegogo was in 2021. Finally, the rough draft of Thumping is next week. Remember, that was supposed to be included in that playable mock-up that was going to be done in early...
This probably lost a lot of people. They're like, too much math. Just too much roughness. Just from entertainment value. He was doing good up until this info dump. Probably people watch this who didn't like, probably just zoned out. Okay, I'm trying to get
a little bit.
I shouldn't.
In early 2018. As well, a lot of the things that were meant to be done with that...
Sorry, I have ethical concerns just playing through a video with no fucking commentary on it. Well,
No,
we're doing this for
fair use.
We're doing this fair use. Yes, fair use. I have very weird, very odd ideas, but I'm going to play this now that I pointed that out.
With that $20,000, including that playable mock-up that was used to drive that funding at $60,000, was not done and nowhere close to that playable mock-up. What was done were a number of things out of scope of that milestone, like a novel and tabletop game, but not even close to the playable mock-up. There was no kaijus, there was no shapeshifters, just a couple different sandboxes with some different features. Isn't this man supposed to be a gaming genius?
Yeah, about that particular thing, that strikes me as odd. You know, trying to find other reasons to not actually complete the game. That's what that strikes me as. there's been a couple of different things like Mark's sort of novelization. Okay, you're saying you're going to do a game, then you add all this other stuff in, and you sort of do that to give the appearance that you're doing something, but that's not what people paid you to do necessarily.
Mission creep to an insane degree.
Mission creep. I guess that is it could be seen as mission creep or just
A scam.
Mark. A lot of people, I think, also get afraid of putting out an actual product that is going to hurt them if it's not perfect. With Mark, I don't know. There are some people out there, it's like you can understand, especially like with Eric July stuff. A lot of people are going after him for the quality of his artwork, but he's putting out the product at least. They're trying to nitpick like how he's always going on about how bad Marvel and DC, but he puts out this slop. Like, at least he put out a product, okay? Will it be a great story? That's subjective. That's what always baffles me, okay? You can have criticisms, but to make it like it's horrible because you don't agree with it. And this, I don't know. Like, sorry, I'm prone to going off on wild tangents. Here's one. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. Did you shut off your stream yet? You're like, I don't want to subject.
No, I'm live. I'm live.
Okay. But yeah, the Game of Thrones. R.R. Martin. Like, I think that's a lot of his problem. He's afraid of putting out he got criticism for like a couple of his last books, and he's afraid of getting criticism. So he's just dragging his feet.
You know, I'm you know, the Tachyon's takes, how I'm doing my take on a specific topic at the end of each volume.
Yeah.
I'm doing one of them on cultural conversations, the sort of quote unquote culture war. And one thing I'm thinking about doing for that is playing a number of games, recent games, just like probably like 3 or 4. And then writing about the experience, like games that are quote unquote culture war adjacent. So something like, I was thinking Dustborn, Stellar Blade, and then probably 2 others, like maybe like Dragon Age Veilguard, Coffee Talk, which is like this indie game. It seems pretty fun. I've been playing it on Xbox actually, but like they even use the word woke in the game. Yeah, and I'm thinking, like, what games do you think would be best of recent games, past few years, to be emblematic of like the culture war? Have I done a pretty good job picking them? And maybe like Star Wars Outlaws too. But that was criticized because of the character's model mostly, I think, right?
From the woke side, yes. There was actually good criticisms about the sort of stealth stuff and a couple of other elements, but from the cultural element, it's just the character model. I mean, I understand why you want to make your beautiful model a little bit more gruff as a character model, but that's just mine. Though, like, you take somewhat a modern woman who is very beautiful and you sort of make them look like an outlaw. They're not going to look like they're in the best of condition. I understood that particular thing. Doesn't sort of detract from the other problems with the game that I've heard about.
Yeah. So I don't know if that would be a good example to use. I do want to play it.
Probably. That seems a little. I hear it. Yeah. If you're a big Star Wars fan, it's a good game to sort of get immersed in the Star Wars world. And they might have been fixing it. I think they took out the mandatory stealth section because of the criticism and how it was utilized in the game. I mean, I do have problems with the fix it later mentality, but I would rather it be fixed than just hold on to that original criticism. That's just my thoughts on it.
Right until July of 2018, when Mark upgraded the website to allow people that back this Indiegogo milestone to upgrade their package and pay more money. You can tell this was driven by some FOMO Get these bikes. Bikes will never be available to anyone else in the entire game. It's only for the M3 backers. So at this point, it's been roughly a year after that M3 campaign, the one that was supposed to have that playable mock-up done in 6 months for that $60,000. And they raised almost double that. With almost double the funding asked for, I'm sure they're good, right? Nah, they're not good at all. This is the start of some really heavy phantom crowdfunding for his game. Sorry, not a game, but a demo whose only purpose is to do a Kickstarter to try to raise millions. If it's taken them this long for a demo, imagine a whole game. He also starts selling skins, which are pretty much just NFTs with no values. They're just pictures. He also starts selling Founders Packs from $15 all the way up to $1,500. Pretty much mirroring what was done on Indiegogo to raise money. So we got the M3 backers that were sold these different types of Founders Pack. After he met the goals in Indiegogo, he started selling the same packs on his own website to raise more money for that M3 campaign. But wasn't $60K supposed to fully fund the playable mockup? And there wasn't going to need to be any other milestones prior to the Kickstarter. What's this money for? No one knows because Mark never shared that. But all that's likely a drop in the bucket to what's coming. In June 2019, Mark starts a new monthly sponsorship program, kind of like a Patreon program, but on his own website. He made that stuff up in the bathtub like moonshine. His crowdfunding subscriber numbers grow to at least 1,500 subscribers at $7.95 a subscriber per month. Right around this peak, he took 2 years away from development without telling anybody, while still collecting and soliciting massive amounts of crowdfunding to develop this demo. An absolutely crazy thing to think about is Grumps has admitted to raising about $600,000. Based on the information that we have, it looks like $250,000 of that $600,000 was crowdfunded at a time Grumps wasn't even working on the game. And he didn't even say anything about it until he was called out. He blamed it on medical issues.
Yeah, I'm unclear on this. Apparently, in a recent post, he told his backers that he was taking care of his sick children, but this sort of contradicts it.
Well, if he didn't tell anybody, then that's obviously a huge issue. I mean, it's a huge issue either way, really. But
yeah, I think it's worse, especially since his recent response. That McDizzle went over also.
Issues with his kids. He willfully knew this and continued to crowdfund. He didn't have time to develop the game, but he certainly had time to shill the skins and such on Twitter. Grumps got paid about $250,000 not to work on his game for 2 years. Again, this is just for a demo to do a larger Kickstarter. This ties into the...
but he did marketing for the game, I guess. Sorry. It seems like if you wanted to get ultra autistic, yeah, he promoted the game, so that you could consider, but the actual game, no. It doesn't seem like he did any work on the game during this 2-year period.
Into the reports from Red 5 Studios where Mark would take extended absences all the time. It also ties into the stories of the mismanagement of money that we've heard. Fast forward to a little over 2 weeks ago when I did my investigation into Ember. Grumps got wind of it and said an anonymous YouTuber was spreading misinformation about him. Grumps was recently interviewed by a larger YouTuber named Upper Echelon. Nothing we've said.
Okay. Did you want to read this just to make sure he's got his facts right? Or you want to move on?
Let's just move on.
Sorry. You've been on my streams before.
Okay.
You know
all right, let's do
it.
Let's do it. All right. So recently, a certain anonymous Twitter user / YouTuber and YouTuber has been spreading a lot of misinformation about myself, and I want to see if they will stand by their words. Let's be adults. I'm not Anon. You have posted my personal information around. Fair is fair. So send me your real name and address, and I'll put it on a file with my lawyers. Then let's just talk. If you stand by your statements, you should have no problem doing this, and we can work it out or agree to disagree.
Does this seem a little extreme?
Yeah.
Everything we've said has been incorrect. From the stealthy fundraising reaching about $600,000, Mark took 2 years off of development, didn't tell anyone at the time, continued to crowdfund to the sum of about $250,000. We were right about the deception of $60K funding the fully playable mockup. We were right about the sole owner of Ember being someone in their late 70s, and the sole owner of Ember also had a debtor's lien put on their property in 2023. The company...
No, he just docks Grumps in the video. Horrible.
Overall sounds pretty risky. As you can see, this whole situation is insane. Any reasonable person would look at this with so many red lights, indicating that it could be quite a big scam. It's like Mark Kern, Ember's only full-time employee, gets paid and does the least amount of work possible. So for him to say that this is misinformation sounds like, well, misinformation from him. Mark also asked for my name and my address so we could chat. when I didn't give it to him and said, hey, you know what? I can call you Grums, you can call me McDizzle, you can clear up any of this. He called me a pussy. So I became a backer of Ember. Popped in and said hi to Grums when he was trying to record a marketing session, you know, as opposed to actually working on the game. It's a shame there's no PvP. Because these accusations have hurt Mark so much, he says he wants a redemption angle. And yeah, people like a redemption arc. Sadly, they don't like hucksters who show time and time again deception is their game. This sounds no different from 2017 when he needed 60K in 6 months to build this playable mock-up, to when he took 2 years off and didn't say a word until he got called out about it and continued to crowdfund upwards of $250,000, or when he got called out from me for his BS. Bro only seems to do anything when there's news about him being a huckster.
One more big score. We got enough money to leave.
What's the plan for Ember going forward? What has Grumps said? Well, it's the same old story from him. Oh, we're going to start doing something now. Isn't it just the same deception he's used for the...
Yeah, a lot of people. Is that enough to convince you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, yeah, that's pretty bad. he has a lot of questions he needs to answer, that's for sure.
Yeah, McDizzle's been staying on his ass, and other people have been joining him and making their own videos. A couple of people did a sweeping for Grum's video, which seems insane, like V.
Yeah, I know V.
It's like, you know V? Did you interview him for your project?
No, I didn't interview him. I did interact with him during GamerGate, though. He's been on my show a couple times, way back in the day, like 9 years ago.
Oh. Well, he did a whole video sweeping for Grums, okay? And now he's part of GamerGate. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even bring this up in my video. I had concerns about Mark with his sort of rhetoric with how he was going. Because I know when you do the us versus them, and you shouldn't treat the other side with any word of sympathy. That is always a mistake, in my opinion. Yes, you should treat them with caution. You should treat them with caution. The main problem with that is if you get a certain tribal mentality, you can just be like, if you criticize me, oh, look, you're part of the other team. It's that whole the whole meme about the people in the middle, about the left pushing people in the middle towards the right. You're a Nazi. Almost seems to be the reverse nowadays. People are coming out and talking about any of this Grum stuff, woke right stuff. There's a lot of people just saying they're just closeted leftists. No, there is a middle.
Do you know what was interesting? When I was in my Twitter space with Archon, like yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, a bunch of the people who were calling in were just like, it was just like random gamers. It was and they were concerned about the right wing possibly the pendulum swinging back into being censorious in the ways that they disagreed with the left being.
Yeah. It's not about left or right for me. It's about the sort of mentality that seems to be woven into identity politics, critical divergence of critical theory. And yeah, the right I can understand the right looking at the left doing this and thinking they got away with this for so long. Let's use it against them. I understand that mentality, wanting the sort of revenge because you feel you've been so persecuted with, and that you shouldn't be the better person when the culture starts to shift in your favor. I just don't understand. I don't think those people think things through about, yeah, if you start doing the same thing 10 years down the road, you're going to have a reactionary movement doing the same exact thing to you, assuming you even succeed in your sort of cultural takeover. It just seems like instant gratification. This is where I would have a problem with just people hedonistically just buying games because it has pretty characters.
You know, I wonder, Vincent. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, I like attractive characters. I think when the lefties being like, "Oh, that's too sexy, unrealistic," I'm like, "Go fuck yourself." Okay, play a different game or shit like that. Whenever they come after something like that. So why would I not have the same standards when rightoids do it, or find these little weird niche issues?
You know, I'm even wondering if one thing that happened with GamerGate is that gaming became mainstream, and now we're always going to see a culture war in gaming. Not a culture war, quote unquote. I think that cultures always change and shift over time. But I wonder if what happened when we were growing up, Vincent, is that the right elements of the right were very much against video games because they viewed
Yep.
them as being too violent, or they viewed them as promoting sexual promiscuity, things like this. Night Trap, Mortal Kombat, Grand Theft Auto, um, and so like basically everyone who was a gamer was either, if they were conservative, they were against the anti-gamer crusaders, and if they weren't a conservative, then they were against them too. So everyone was kind of like united, and gaming was like a relatively niche enough hobby, perhaps, that there wasn't like a major cultural divide or rift. But I wonder if what happened during Gamergate, or what perhaps was revealed by Gamergate, is that gaming is so mainstream now that everyone, that it is everyone now. It is the religious pastors, it's the social justice people, it's all these different groups, and they're always going to be vying for power and influence, and the promotion of their interests in the gaming industry from now moving from Gamergate moving forward, essentially. I wonder.
Yeah, that's probably it. I'm
But
hoping we're going to a more indie game market. I mean, I just sort of gotten out of the Western games. There's a couple of I played, but I'm actually really happy. Some series that I supported over the years and really enjoyed, like I was one of the people who picked up Demon Souls because I found it interesting. I actually worked at GameStop and imitation of GameStop for a couple of years, like 10 years ago. This is why I never paid attention to game journalists. I heard GameStop TV tell me all this shit, and when I got to play all the games for free, so I'm like, dudes, yeah, it's that game isn't for me that you're promoting, that you want me to push to the customers. I always went to the customers and be like, okay, what do you like? I actually got into trouble a few times because I wouldn't push the pre-orders. I'm like, I'm trying to sell them games. I'm trying to find them the game that is right for them as an individual. Pushing this big ticket name is sort of bullshit. And that's sort of what game journalists became after a while. They became just marketed. Like, we need to push this. But that's just my... Go on.
I didn't know you worked in the games industry.
It's not game working as a GameStop customer associate.
Yeah, technically, right?
I guess. Okay, maybe I should have joined the GameStop. No.
Was it a fun job?
It had its moments in the beginning until they put me in the store, this really busy store where everyone was quitting. I think someone got fired for stealing, and I'm just like, fuck you guys. I quit because they wouldn't transfer me to a different location or let me have decent hours. It just got ridiculous at one point. It was more the management of GameStop at that time that just had me just like, fuck you, and go on to something else. But yeah, you are probably right. But yeah, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, that finally got Elden Ring. Atlas has the game that really got popular, Metaphor Refasara. Almost won Game of the Year. Not that I care what award shows have to say about it. It's just marketing.
What's an anti-woke game that's good? I mean, other than Stellar Blade, which isn't even an anti-woke game, really. It's just like a game with a sexy character in it.
Yeah, and I hear it's just a imitation of like a sexier version of a Nier Automata with a worse writing. But I haven't played it because I won't get a PS5. Okay. Put it on PC and I'll play it. Right? Oh, that's fine. Game Pass is, I don't know if it's going to kill Microsoft to do this sort of streaming service. Also, the industry's changing, the streaming model. like, I don't know how that's going to turn out for the marketplace. The industry shifting. That's also
I don't like
going to
the.
cause some shakeups.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's coming to PC, not Xbox. My bad.
Well,
But yeah, I don't like the always online or the shift away from like the PS5 Pro doesn't have disk drives. That's insane. I would never buy one of those.
Yeah, I didn't even want to get the PS5. I'm just like, I'm done with PlayStation. Okay, I'm done with it. I played some games on Game Pass, and a game I did want to play, but I can wait, is Rebirth. And that's coming to PC. I'm happy about that. Elden Ring, Refazaro.
Wait,
I'm
Rebirth?
good with that.
Like Resident Evil Rebirth or
no, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. That's coming to PC, I heard. And I'm like, yes, okay. Because I played the first one. I actually got gifted by a friend of mine. Remake, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. And I enjoyed it. Maybe it has woke elements in it. I don't know. There's some weird people trying to make weird arguments about that shit. I don't think Japan always has a weird sort of mentality. But who knows about that?
Is that your first time playing a Final Fantasy game or Final Fantasy 7?
No, I got into Final Fantasy 7 back in the day. Borrowed it from the friend, and I'm probably a little bit too much of a fanboy of that series. So my blinders are probably on to the mistakes of the remakes.
Well, yeah, being a fanboy is the problem, right?
Maybe. I'm not pushing that other people should buy it. I'm just like, I don't see the problem with the artistic direction. We had the original Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, they changed it because they wanted to do this weird correct the timeline. I'm one of these people who might get pissed if you don't have the option to save Aerith in the new series, which they might actually not give you that option. And I'll be pissed about that.
You know what's funny? Do you know Ash Short?
No.
She's one of the people I interviewed. In my interview with her, she talked about one of the things she doesn't like about games journalism is that they promote rampant speculation, like that you could possibly save Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. She actually specifically criticized Kotaku for promoting that myth, for speculating about that as being one of the reasons that she doesn't like games journalism.
I can understand that. I was one of those people who tried to track down that as a sort of bug and try to figure that out. Also with Final Fantasy X-2, trying to get that full completion to get Titus back. I was one of those people.
So one thing I've weighed, just for fun, completely unrelated to any project, is playing through all of the Final Fantasy games on stream, starting with 1. Is that a terrible idea?
No, that actually sounds like a good idea. I mean, if you can take the older style.
How do you feel?
And
like
you might
aren't the first 2 like really rough?
The first one is very bare, basic, simplistic. Second one, also the order of them. Okay, there's a couple of them. I would say play at least the first one. The one that is always shifting. 6 is probably one of the most underrated ones, but it's a really hard game to play.
That's with Terra, right?
Yeah. That's one of the most, probably the best story overall in the series. A little convoluted, but that's all Final Fantasy. It's one of the better stories that is sort of underestimated.
Yeah, I started playing 6 on my Game Boy actually, but embarrassingly, I stopped playing for like 6 months, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna start playing again. And I couldn't remember where I was supposed to go. So much time had passed. I'm like, wait, what the? I was lost.
I've done
in
that
the desert.
Before. I usually get a.
Well, hey, anything else you want to talk about, Vincent?
No, I think that's enough for tonight, for the stream at least. Yeah, I figured I would go over that. Didn't want to go too deep into the Smash stuff. Anyone who's saying that I think there's only like a very small with the Alyssa Smash stuff. It's too early to tell. I'm really annoyed with the rhetoric because people are retarded with the terminology always on both sides. But at the end of the day, I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm not going to root for either one. I'm just going to speculate. Someone said something about an anti.
So she's suing him?
Yes.
For real?
Yeah. She posted it on Twitter. Okay. They're trying to say, he
didn't do anything,
she
did he?
doxed him.
What is she suing him over? Or is this a whole thing that we don't want to get into?
Probably a whole thing. I mean, he has it. I'll just bring it up real quick, just for a matter of a fact. I think she has an argument. Everyone wants to be autistic about it. Like, a judge is going to throw this out. I'm like, you don't know how the law works. And I even said that before I really got into it. But yeah, the law is really weird. Actually, you know what? I did a thread that I wasn't going to go over. Yeah.
Well,
did I even not include it? Fucking hell. I didn't. Okay, yeah, let's not get into it.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I'll say thank you so much for having me on, and I hope that you decide to, you and the audience decide to back the Kickstarter at GamerGateBook.com. This really is a labor of love to document the true story of what happened, and it's an incredible journey. I think you'll be in for an incredible journey as the reader. So I hope you decide to back the project. We're halfway there to our goal. We still have a ways to go. And you can also play games with some of your favorite GamerGate people as an add-on. After you select your tier, you can actually select. You can play. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Vincent, you can play chess with Aaron Joni, the author of the Zoe post. You can play Rocket League
As
with
I
him.
said, you need to get Chris Ferguson onto that, and maybe I'll be more excited.
Hey, Chris Ferguson.
He dispelled the myth of, he was one of the spearheads who were like, yeah, rightoids, fuck off. These video games don't actually cause real world violence. Here's my research for it. Take that, bitches.
You know what you can do, Vincent? I'll tell you what you can do.
What?
You can go on GamerGateBook.com, and you can choose the tier that has Chris Ferguson.
Oh, you got him on there?
He is doing the Gilda Mars digital bundle. For $215, you will get all copies, or all volumes rather, of the People of Gamergate digitally, and you'll get a tabletop RPG game night session with Chris Ferguson as the DM, and up to 4 other backers, and you get perks from other various tiers as well, such as like your the backer role on my Discord server, special thanks in the book, and at this tier, at the digital bundle tier, you also get a Q&A with me and a
okay,
private screening.
Stop overselling. Stop overselling.
A private screening of the Airplay documentary. All right.
You got me. But you only got me because I'm sort of a nerd. Okay, actual nerd.
Or if you want hardcover,
a lot of these people,
you can do the Vivian James bundle, but then you'll do the RPG with me instead of with Chris. So
okay, we need to talk about overselling. Okay, but yeah, this is Vincent Martin. I'll be streaming whatever, and I might actually have a very interesting project come out eventually, but who knows? I'm a little ADHD overall. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Peace out. Thanks for having me.